Hey everybody, welcome to GMG Review. Today we're taking a look at Rangers of Shadowdeep role-playing Run Down the Racklan by Joe McCullough. Man, am I excited about this for Joe. I was gonna review this a few weeks ago, so we got the digital copy actually. The patrons asked me to pick it up with basically the indie hour like talk that we were having. And then Joe was super kind and sent this along as a physical copy so you could see the actual printed version. And this is a full circle thing for Joe. Joe got into writing, and I'm gonna speak for Joe for a second. So Joe, when you're watching, this is my version of stories you've told me over and over again, so I apologize in advance for this. When Joe got into writing war games, he'd originally wanted to be an RPG writer. He grew up on RPGs, you know, wanting to be an RPG writer was kind of the driving force from working for Osprey, writing Frostgrave. And you can feel that baked into all of his projects. You can feel that baked into you know, like the narrative, like scene by scene story driving in Rangers. You can see that in Frostgrave with the events table, the way that like your pregame and postgame action unfolds. You can see that in, you know, the Silver Bayonet with all the modes of play where you have solo, cooperative, and then head-to-head modes of play. He's always trying to make things that you can't predict come to pass and inject that little bit of memorable moment and crackerjack into sorry, crackerjack, it's a dated reference, but like a surprise at the bottom of the cereal box is the idea here, into his gameplay. So to have him basically take Rangers and with his first book, turn it from just the adventure tabletop war game that's miniature driven into a theater of the mind role-playing game is really exciting. And that's what this is. So this is a perfect bound. It's about 50 pages. It's a full complete adventure for you to wrap your mind around playing Rangers of Shadowdeep, not as a tabletop miniature game, but as a role-playing game. And the first part of this book is dedicated to that. So converting Rangers of Shadowdeep to a role-playing game. I'm paraphrasing. That first part was me paraphrasing also what's in here in the introduction by Joe, talking about writing his first RPG supplement for Rangers. So I'm not gonna bother putting this in my own words. When I first released Rangers of Shadowdeep, I called it a tabletop adventure game because I thought it fell somewhere between a traditional war game and a role-playing game. While the mechanics and playstyle owed more to a war game, the connection to a single character and the strong narrative drive was more akin to an RPG. The most important difference was the game is that currently written and using an RPG is the inclusion of a game master. So basically, Rangers is Joe is writing the game master parts in the adventure modules. And you are then mechanically, through the RNG, the random number generation, enacting those switches and triggers to have events take place. What this does is inserts a GM and gives them the information to run scenes, and then runs off the core mechanics of Rangers of Shadowdeep with stats and skill rolls, doing combat, all the same stuff that you would do, how to use money, how to use experience, and everything else. And you don't need much. Basically, it's just having a person as the GM walk you through the scenes and the combat. Everything else is kind of already in there. And the Rangers core mechanic is so skill driven with so many skills for your NPCs and you, this makes a great solo RPG if you want it to be, or get a group of friends and assign all of your companions, play your Ranger and then assign your companions to your friends and play through that way as well. So if there's 3 or more players, it's just that each player run their Ranger without any companions, and just have 3 companions instead. If there's 2 players, allow each to select 1 companion for the usual group. There's only a single player, allow them to select 3 companions as normal. And then you build a barge. So you're gonna want some type of a miniature for this barge if you want. You can just cut out, and there's a million different like cool maps of boats. Jay and I, for the little Rangers of Shadowdeep mission that we wrote, The Last Voyage of the Exeter, we used a wonderful, it was a gridded map book that we had to do that. And then we get Run Down the Racklan, which is the first adventure. This is the highest compliment I can pay this. This reminds me a lot of the Advanced Fighting Fantasy Dungeoneer book in the way that it runs you through doing this. The only thing that's not in here, obviously, is the core mechanics for Rangers of Shadowdeep. Now, before I go too much further on, why aren't the core mechanics of this included in here? He didn't want you to have to buy them twice. And he's assuming that if you've played Rangers of Shadowdeep, you have the core rules. So instead of having you play it twice, he's just giving you, in the first 10 pages of the book, all the instructions on how to GM it using those same core rules, because you don't need a second set of core rules. Like you use these parts, you don't use these parts. You don't use the monster AI. The GM does all that stuff, right? You get descriptions of what the monsters are going to, the bad guys and the protagonists and antagonists are going to do in the story-driven ping. So pull those parts out. The combat's the same. The skill checks are the same. All that stuff's going to be the same. And then we get our story. So this is a first crew story where you're basically taking passage aboard the Racklan, or sorry, the Water Lily, going down from the Telonian principalities to the great Aladorian city of Portreric. Portreric, Joe, you're killing me. Portreric. There's too many R's and too many T's and too many. Portreric that's how I'm saying that word. I love when Joe writes something he hasn't said out loud. It's a 7-day journey by barge, though mostly unaccompanied lands, although stopping at a few small villages along the way. A family of 4 is also aboard at this time, and a few hours later, a man is spotted waving a red scarf from the end of an old, mostly rotten dock. Although the crew seems surprised, they stop the barge and allow a group of 4 to board. There's no way to know at this point, but 3 of these individuals are a mercenary group called the Nightblades. They've kidnapped a young woman, the daughter of a Telonian noble, and are keeping her drugged while they attempt their escape. This group does everything it can to keep others away from them. So this is your GM reading section. And if you plan to go any further, I would not read this unless you're planning to GM this yourself. If you're planning to play through as a player character, stop watching now, because I've given away the general beats of what's happening aboard the Water Lily. Now the rest of it is going to give you section by section things to paraphrase, to read or paraphrase out loud. I love this as a writing mechanic for role-playing games. Having a story prompt and then you fill in the action afterwards. GMing is hard. Being the person setting the scene and organizing, and the reason it's hard is you have to have the clearest picture in your head of what's happening, and then you have to continuously move people around inside of it as they talk to you. GMing is not easy. So having something that when you transfer from scene to scene, you literally read out loud to establish what's going on and where everyone is so useful. One of the most important parts of, I think, of like adventure design from a playability and use point of view. It's the reason why stage direction exists in plays. This is great writing from like just a simple design point of view. I just want to give Joe his flowers there. If you need to do a scene transference thing, always give the GM something to read out loud. It's so useful for them to be able to hold the scene in their head and establish what's going on so that their brain can use it, especially if you're doing theater of the mind. You're gonna get background information in each of these things, and they do little call outs here for the first 3 scenes. And then as you go through, you're gonna get more and more as the barge goes further downriver and you get your epilogue. You're gonna get stats for everybody. So the Mantellos, the family that's in here. I won't ruin too much of what else is going on. But because the GM is meant to read this only, I'm not going to give you a model list. Typically, Rangers of Shadowdeep will have a model list of what models you might need. But if you're a ranger and you're going to be playing through this, I don't want to spoil it for you. So that's it. Run down the Racklan. This is Rangers of Shadowdeep's first role-playing expansion. I'm really excited for Joe for this because, one, I think this is probably... I can imagine Joe really happily writing something like this because... It's less mechanically engaged and more narratively engaged, and I think that probably brings him a lot of joy. And 2, this is just a great interstitial for your Rangers of Shadowdeep campaign. If you can't get together to play a game with your friends or to have an adventure, this is something you can do by Zoom. You can do this, asymmetrically, and it just brings the game, I think, to more people. So this is something I'm really excited for him to start doing more of. I imagine he's probably got a couple. Knowing Joe, who is the most dedicated writer, actually, I shouldn't say that. I know several people who are dedicated writers. But I would say if they had to arm wrestle between Joe McCullough and my friend Christian Cameron, they are the 2 most, what is the word? They're the 2 most organized writers. They know when, they know things about themselves, like when it's best for them to write and how long they're capable of writing for and stuff like that. Like they treat it like marathon running, and my poor frazzled neurodivergent brain cannot do that. I can see him having a few of these in the can already, ready to go. So expect more of this in the future. Of course, lovely art once again, I think done by Barrett Stanley. Yep, still Barrett Stanley. The graphic design is done by Andrew Vallis. So you can pick this up on Drive Through RPG in physical, like this, in little A5 scale, Perfect Bind. Yeah, it's Perfect Bind, not Saddle Stitch. Or of course digitally, which is what I also picked it up as, and I'll link it in the video description below. So big thanks for watching. We'll see you for more GMG reviews. Thanks for just sending this along. Thanks, Tom Ash. Have a good one.